Alright guys, time to grab it back again today. I hope you're enjoying your day so far, and today we're going to discuss this interesting clip which came out on the new Stay Attached podcast hosted by Attach, where Arcetes was on a couple of days ago. He's done a couple of episodes now. I think Dashy was on, then Arcetes was on. A lot of great content stuff going around the Call of Duty community this off-season, which you do love to see. Arcetes has some interesting words on exactly what the Huntsmen would have done if it had stayed 5 versus 5. The 4 versus 4 change, of course, completely switched up the entire landscape of the competitive Call of Duty scene, but he says that Huntsmen would have stayed the same if it had stayed 5v5 into next season, and an interesting discussion really, especially given the fact that he wanted to play a main assault rifle. Where exactly would that have been able to fit in next season, and would that team actually have been competitive, especially given what Dallas Empire were accomplishing at the end of the season? Some interesting questions for you guys to leave some thoughts on in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you were new. As always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you for doing that, really helps out the channel. And of course, this was what happened a few months ago, well, last month of course, on the 8th of September. It was officially confirmed a memorable run from the amazing year means that Arcetes and Bristini are going to be leaving the squad, and this of course was understandable that Bristini was going to be leaving the squad to move to 4 versus 4. That seemed like the most obvious change. He seemed like the odd one out on the squad. Certainly Scump and Formal weren't going to go anywhere. Envoy of course is planned by Hector, I imagine, to be like the next Scump, I suppose, when he moves on, the next big personality, the next great player, and well, is certainly living up to that name as of the last couple of seasons that he has played. Now Arcetes of course came in at the start of the season. There was the rumour from well, Octane said that actually he was intended to be on Seattle. It was like Arcetes, Envoy, Slacked, Octane and Apathy, I think was the squad they were looking at. That fell through because they got the opportunity to go to the Huntsmen. Of course Gunless was there at the start of the season as well. Bristini then joins after the Gunless thing goes down, as it tends to happen every single year, and well, then they decide to depart. But interestingly, they decide to split up and go onto different rosters, because Atlanta FaZe confirmed on, well, it was the 15th of September, exactly a week later, welcome to Atlanta FaZe Arcetes, the final boss. And he discusses at length in this podcast that he reached out to Tyler Abizi and was like, look, obviously we won a world championship together on eUnited. I'm looking to play a main assault rifle leadership type position, and well, they agreed, the Atlanta FaZe guys agreed that look, that's probably what we needed as a team, the fact that we were lacking someone to, you know, give us direction in the crucial moments. And I think you saw that when they fell short in so many grand finals last season, despite having all the talent in the world on that team. And that's why a lot of people are saying that Atlanta FaZe are the deadliest team right now, because they have all the greatest players in all the roles you would need, really, arguably, in all those different positions, and they all fit kind of in perfectly. So I must say it was somewhat surprising to me that Arcetes said that, yeah, this team would have stuck into next season on the Chicago Huntsmen, because, I mean, they were playing pretty well. Like, they won a tournament with this new team as well, but to the World Championship, they fell somewhat short. They lost to the Atlanta FaZe in the losers finals, who went on to lose to the Dallas Empire, right? So the end of the season, the Huntsmen was certainly like a top 3 team in the game, but Dallas and Atlanta were some sort of a step above. So I'll just share what Arcetes had to say on this one, and then we can discuss this a little bit more in depth.
Oh, wait, one more from the chat. One more. If Call of Duty stayed 5v5, do you think you would have stayed on the Huntsmen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
I've answered that plenty of times. Yes.
I said, damn.
I think that team would have stayed the same no matter what.
Okay.
5v5.
4v4, switching everything up.
So this is what he said about it at the time. Thank you to all the fans, team and owners. Appreciate all of them for the opportunity and for respecting the decision of me wanting to switch to a main AR for 4v4. I've been a professional for 4 years and haven't had a full year running main. Thank you to Hector and co, Andy Miller and the Huntsmen. So really cool to see from both parties. And clearly if it was 5v5, Arcetes wasn't too adamant about playing a main assault rifle. Like this season, the roles were certainly back and forth. When it was a 4 SMG meta, Formal certainly is going to be running the main AR. And Arcetes was very good in the SMG role, but he preferred to play a main AR, and certainly in 4v4, makes sense he wants to go over to that, over to the Atlanta FaZe team and run the main AR over there, which they kind of needed. But on the Chicago Huntsmen for next season, there's definitely some questions as to how competitive that team would have been if it stuck together. And it's interesting for me, because the Atlanta FaZe, I imagine, would they have stuck together, right? They've just lost to the Dallas Empire at the World Championship Grand Finals. Certainly Dallas Empire would have wanted to stick together. Clayster wouldn't have left that team if it had have stayed 5v5, of course. They were the reigning world champions. They didn't want to have to get rid of anyone, and it turned out to be a very difficult situation for them, the fact that they win the world championship and the very next day they have to decide to get rid of a player. So yeah, unbelievable frankly how the whole offseason has worked out this year into that roster mania period. But if you were Atlanta FaZe, having lost to the Dallas Empire at the world championship, do you want to stick with that starting 5, right? Because if I'm Atlanta FaZe, I'm thinking maybe I'm going to get smoked again next year by the Dallas Empire, right? Because the team was certainly unbelievable, right? Simp, Abizi, Selly, and Major Maniac and Priester, maybe the most talented team team on paper in the entire game. They made multiple grand finals, but I think their grand finals appearances were like 2 in 4. They like made 6 grand finals, they won 2 relatively early on, and they lost all the other 4. And a lot of those losses were in relatively convincing fashion. So if I was Atlanta FaZe management, or if I was some of the players, I would already have been thinking like, you know, okay, even if it's not going 4 versus 4, do we look to make a team change? And RCDs does make perfect sense, right? Even in a 5 versus 5 environment, RCDs coming over as your kind of main AR, like Major Maniac. If you know, maybe you get rid of Maniac, but you have Celium kind of running your main AR, Simp, BZ, and Priest. I mean, that could be a nasty team, of course, if it had stayed 5 versus 5. And well, RCDs, I imagine, did want to still team with his brother, but the 4v4 switch just made that impossible. So it would have been a very different landscape for a number of reasons. As you can see here, the Chicago Huntsmen team, they had a great start to the season. They were consistently at least making semi-finals at these events. Then the Gunless thing all goes sour. They bring in Pristini. They win the Seattle event, kind of fall off a little bit, and then bounce back nicely at the World Championship. So not bad at all. Definitely a top 3 team over the course of the season. You can definitely say, like, if it had been on LAN, would this have been different? Would this team have been superior? You could definitely argue it would have been. Would they have been as good as Dallas Empire and Atlanta FaZe were at the end of the cycle? Maybe not though, right? And going into next year, maybe it just wasn't a great year for this team. Like, Modern Warfare didn't suit the playstyles of some of these guys the best. Maybe Black Ops Cold War would have been even better, right? But if I was a Chicago Huntsmen fan, I wouldn't necessarily have been super confident that this team was going to come out and win World Championships going into the next season of 5v5, because you've just had Dallas Empire get better and better throughout the season. Yes, they did it online and everything, but you know, who knows when we're going to be back on LAN, how many LAN events we're going to have in the 2021 season for Black Ops Cold War. And I'd be looking at this team thinking, well, okay, can we compete with Dallas Empire, especially given the fact that Hukeli Shotzi are probably just going to keep getting better and better and better with the guidance of Clayster and Crimsix. Seem to be a perfectly formed team, team dynamic, I suppose. So these were the other teams in the league last season. I just put a ring around some of them, which were very competitive. Dallas Empire were obviously going to stick. And then there's the question around, okay, Florida Mutineers, Atlanta FaZe, would they have stuck next season? Because we've seen that Frosty's been released from the Mutineers throughout the offseason. Skies, Ferrer, and Awakening are going to stay. Is Havoc going to be their 4th? Like, would they have stayed as a 5-man team if it was going to be staying 5v5 into Black Ops Cold War? Like, very possibly, right? They were obviously a very solid team throughout the course of it. And then the Atlanta FaZe question is the interesting one to me, because RCT's, like he mentioned in the podcast, that he did actually reach out to these guys. But if I was Atlanta FaZe, finishing last season, just falling short to the Empire, thinking, look, we need like a proper main AR, I suppose, and a leadership type figure, because, you know, BZ, Simp, and Selim obviously weren't going anywhere. And maybe you keep Priest, or maybe you keep Major Maniac, whatever you want to do on the Atlanta FaZe. But I would have thought that RCT's would have been a top target for these guys, reuniting that World Championship, winning roster, I suppose, on a United. And if I was Atlanta FaZe, I'd be reaching out to RCT's and be like, what can we do to poach you on this team? Because clearly they needed that type of player on their squad last season. And if you were RCT's getting an offer to Atlanta FaZe in the 5v5 environment, even though you're on the Huntsman and all the benefits and perks that come along with that, and your team with your brother, your team with guys who you've, of course, wanted to team with for years, I imagine, in Scump and Formal, and Envoy, of course, a phenomenal player that he was planning to team with on Seattle Surge, I believe, before the season even began, would you still consider the Atlanta FaZe offer in that situation? Maybe you well would. So I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Chicago Huntsman fan, what do you think Huntsman should have done if it had have stayed 5 versus 5? Because do you see this roster of 5 being competitive with the Dallas Empire and the Atlanta FaZe if they even made a change and maybe brought a different assault rifle into their team or something like that? Because I imagine Atlanta FaZe may have been looking to make a change regardless, even though they did obviously do so well throughout the season. They fell short at a number of different events, and they may have been looking at someone different. And you know, how competitive would Huntsman have been? Probably still a top 3 team or something in that range, but I would have been somewhat concerned going into the new season without any roster changes, I believe, on the Huntsman if I was a Huntsman fan. But now, of course, with RCDs going to the Atlanta FaZe in the 4 versus 4 environment, a lot of people are saying, especially Maven for this quote right here, they are the team to beat going into the new season, which is a remarkable statement, quite frankly, given they are the reigning world champions, but I can certainly see why people are arguing this case. Just wanted to finish off with this funny clip here from attached and Shotzi on stream a couple of days ago. Thought this was pretty entertaining about cleaning your PS4. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for making it this far. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the channel. Thank you for doing that, and I will see you next time.
My PS4 is already struggling. Something's about to blow up.
But you still haven't cleaned it? I remember you tweeting about that.
Haven't cleaned it.
What?
Did you ever clean yours?
2 seconds, right? Yeah. I mean, you could blow with your mouth, but I mean, like...
You can what? Yo, no wonder your PS4 treats you so well last season. You were making your PS4 feel real good, huh?
Nah. Listen, I'm saying you could blow with your mouth, but like I said, you're gonna get hella dust in your nose and all that stuff. So like, your ass is gonna be...
The they're like walking downstairs, you just got dust all over your face or your nose. Your parents like, what are you doing? People say like you have to like blow on it.
Bro, nah, I made it sound so sus, but like, you know what I mean.
Nah, after the stream, I'm gonna blow up my PS4 for like probably like 30 minutes. Just give it a nice, just give it a nice blow.